In the parable that Jesus speaks of when it comes to removing a spirit from someone, and he speaks of it going out into the dry lands, the wilderness for a time, and it comes back and looks at its home to see if it's clean or furnished. He was speaking allegory, of course, when it comes to a home, because our body is a temple, and spirits take their home in our temple. But also, it speaks about filling that empty space with something, preferably God, because once it comes back and if it finds that it's knocking at the door trying to get back in, that's the temptation to let it back in, and when we sin, it lets it back in. But also the 7 times going out and finding other spirits, 7, which is completion, but it's also along the lines of making it worse for the person. Whenever spirit goes out to find 7 worse than itself and comes back because he found that his home, his temple, our body, has not been lived in, has not been furnished by the new inhabitant, again, preferably God, then in that case, it's going to bring in 7 others, so it's going to be 8. So it's going to be 8 right there. 8 is a number for new beginnings. So in a way, it's continuing a cycle. It could be a new cycle because it's even worse, but it's still continuing a cycle because instead of filling that gap with God the Father, Jesus, however you want to say it, same triune being. Instead of filling that gap there, many times with these deliverance ministers to do crusades, unfortunately, a large majority, like 90 plus, maybe not quite that much, but like 80 to 90 plus of people who get delivered during these crusades don't have a home. They don't have a way of being discipled. So when they get this stuff removed and the spirits go out into the wilderness, and then after a certain period of time they come back, it's because they don't have a fellowship. They don't have a discipleship, a way of getting discipled and make sure that stuff is filled, that gap is filled with God, rather than just saying, yes, I'm free. Soon after, temptation hits, which is a spirit trying to get in, and they let it in, and now it comes and brings 7 more. So thus a new cycle, 8. That is a real negative when it comes to deliverance ministries. Now, if some things are set up correctly, where someone comes in there into a new church and they do get that deliverance from that spirit, but instead of them not having any being under authority, shall we say, of the leadership of being basically being discipled, and then they fill that gap when that temptation does come, because again, that's the spirit knocking on the door, trying to get in, trying to get back into its house. If that person can resist the temptation, Scripture says that the devil, the enemy, will flee, because you're resisting that temptation for that thing to come back in. So thus, it leaves. And so instead of it bringing more and you becoming worse, you now have God in that gap that you filled because of the Spirit leaving. That whole idea, that whole concept, the blueprint right there of how things function, many people don't realize. And that is a very vital process that needs to be understood in the church in order to really continue to grow and not get stuck in these endless cycles that seem to never end.